let's directly jump onto the next panel. It's called Strengthening the DSA Enforcement, Market Oversight and Consumer Protection, where we again have different stakeholders and perspectives, but equally important. We have a trusted flagger representative, independent researchers, and also, of course, the consumers here, like regular guests in our committee. So we start with Andronikos Kotrumpelis, senior editor, and Stamatios Akonotis, I hope I pronounced your names correctly, chief editors from FactReview, and you are, this is what I understand, a trusted flagger, so it's very important to also hear your perspective. Welcome. You have equally 9 minutes, the two of you together.
Yeah, thank you a lot for the invitation. You can see a presentation of ours on the screen. So you can move to the next slide. I will try to be concise as the presentation is a report, our first report as Trusted Flaggers, which you can also find a link to in the last slide. So to clarify, we are a fact-checking organization which has been accredited by numerous networks, but a very specific part of our work is trusted flagging. Trusted flagging, though, is only for specific and extreme cases of disinformation. So our regular work is only about providing information to people, not about taking down anything. So, for example, if there is a deepfake or a fraud case, this is about trusted flagging only. If it is like a misleading photograph, it is not about trusted flagging or taking it down. Next slide. So, for our first report, we opted to focus on Meta. Despite that all VLOP is deserving scrutiny, we had to focus due to its leading presence in user base, as well as information about its very extreme ad fraud and deception problem. Next slide. So Meta has principles for advertisements, but even though they claim that transparency is very important for them, we have found in our review that many cases and many important aspects of the process remain unclear. Next. So there are a series of reports in the context of the DSA and DMA laws, but despite they explaining that the ad process is primarily based on automated systems to enforce its standards, we have not found data to verify that this approach suffices for consistent standards. Next. A very specific example is an indicator for accuracy, which is the rate of automated decisions that have been overturned after manual review in the entirety of Meta's moderation. This is the only index that Meta provides for accuracy. But actually, this index is completely relevant to how much infringing content fails to be identified. So this is really not transparent. Next. For human moderators, Meta does not report what percentage of flagged ads they review or eventually double-check. And for many languages, we found that Meta reports hiring only dozens of moderators for the totality of their work. There is no separate reporting for ad moderators. And when excluding international languages, we found like 160,000 users per moderator on average. And it's especially concerning that less prominent countries generally report even lower figures. So, for example, in Greece, we only have 30 moderators for 6.4 million users. Next. Okay, this is the slide. So, we know that in April 24, the European Commission opened DSA proceedings against Meta with two-sided reasons connected to this presentation. The impractical mechanism for flagging illegal content, which has been partially, it has been made a bit better, but improper handling of deception is still very much a problem. A series of independent analyses had uncovered networks of scammers and propagandists that had bypassed Meta's moderation. So an example of a very good report is a total review of the ads published in Meta platforms in 64 EU countries across months. This review found that most political ads were not reported as such, and Meta's automated moderation failed to detect the majority of them. These political ads were spared from stricter rules and transparency requirements during especially a very sensitive period of elections, either national or European. Next. Another example is the Russian disinformation campaign Doppelganger, which was first reported in August 2022, but remains active to this day. Meta has not managed to block it. The latest report on it shows that a Russian-associated entity has gotten political ads repeatedly approved by easily circumventing Meta's moderation. And here the paradox is that independent researchers could automatically detect the campaign, after the event of course, despite having minimal resources compared to Meta. Next. So financial ad fraud seems to be even more common than political deception. A 2024 Bank of Ireland survey found that 1/3 of adults reported ad fraud on social media, according to their knowledge. Nearly half reported ads for crypto investments, which is a common type of fraud, and we consider very likely that the actual rate is underreported due to lacking public awareness and training. So it is a very, very prevalent problem. Next. We also have some data that user flagging of ad fraud is often ineffective. So even scams that are very obvious to a moderately experienced user and very obvious to a fact checker or a moderator are often found non-infringing even hours or days after the report, presumably only by automated checking. There is also no obvious way to escalate a case to a human moderator with obscure exceptions. Next. A striking case where Meta even failed to stop the impersonation of its CEO was in 2023, a series of ad campaigns where Google and Meta were impersonated so that users were directed to install malware. And versions of a campaign were detected to be running in several countries for months. Next. Another big problem is that known scams are not consistently stopped. So a year of our investigation in a pseudo-medical product that was then institutionally denounced by numerous organizations, we still found accepted ads of the product and only part of them taken down. So even when Meta tries to take something down, it cannot really match the lowest threshold. We just searched on the ad meta library with the name of the fraud, and even we could just find these advertisements, but Meta couldn't. And when we made this report, we just tried searching for cryptocurrency in Greek our language, and an ad fraud was brought up in the third result. It was so prevalent and nobody had seen it. Next. We also tried to have a one-month experiment. So for the purpose of our report, a user offered to record every instance of ad fraud that he came along his everyday usage of Facebook. And he recorded 36 separate scam instances, with some shown to him multiple times. We have recorded all of them. Next. Another really worrisome, we think, case that came up just while we were finalizing our report was that an EDMO investigation, this is a pan-European network about disinformation, a post about an investigation that was about a Russian network of inauthentic behavior was taken down because Meta alleged that our report was inauthentic behavior. So the complete opposite. There was no obvious way to appeal at all, even to an automated system. And we asked around the community, after our finalizing our report, more organizations across Europe had the same issue, and a specific worrisome report was from Slovakia, where the social media manager of an organization was completely blocked from Facebook for a month, allegedly from promoting financial scams while actually having a report uncovering financial scams. They even tried to contact Meta through a personal partnership and the National Digital Service Coordinator, but this ban was not lifted for a month. Next. So we have a worrisome conclusion, the apparent conflict of interest. Meta makes about 99% of its revenue through ads. Its net income for 2024 was 62 billion, which was a 60-year increase year over year. Meta employs a relatively minuscule number of moderators, mostly relies on automated systems that fail to detect obvious cases of ad fraud, as we have seen. Regardless of intention, this means that the direct result is increased income for Meta by ad fraud. And for example, only the previously mentioned propaganda ads by the Russian entity in the EU generated a minimum earning for Meta of $34,000. Next, short suggestions that we provided is that Meta should be asked to provide an extensive technical report on how it applies moderation on advertisements. It needs to significantly increase the number of human moderators, especially in underrepresented languages, and it should require manual ad approval in campaigns with suspect themes, and these criteria should be independently verifiable. Thank you a lot.
Thank you so much to also pointing again to the concrete problems that we're facing. I think it's always important to know what we talk about and why we have the DSA.